Hi guys, I'm going to do episode 2 review. So that's the one with the empty nesters. So it was the American home with the Japanese family, Japanese Americans, and they're looking at decluttering their family home because they've got lots of spare rooms that have become junk rooms since their kids have moved out. And that is really, really common. So if this is talking to you because you have a spare room, which is more like a junk room, or something that used to be a rumpus room, which is now a storage space, that becomes really, really common. And it's almost like what I say when you have so much, when I say that storage solutions is not the way to being organised, more space is not the way to being organised. So that's very, very common with empty nesters. What I loved about this episode is when they did the clothing, Marie straight up set up the expectations. So when they made that massive pile of clothes, I've never seen a pile that big, she said this is going to take a couple of days. You know, this is a changing process which takes a while. It's not going to happen overnight. You have to invest time and effort into it. And I think unlike some homes I go to here, or even some homes that probably I have, I don't have the luxury of that much space that I can just close a door in one room and leave it and come back to it. But they clearly did, because they had enough space to just put all their clothes in one room and then close it and come back to it later on. So that I found was probably only realistic for really big homes or empty nesting for sure. She explained why we put it all in one big pile in this episode. So the reason we do that is so that you can actually see the sheer amount of stuff that you have. Because so often with clothes it's spread around everywhere, just getting it all together is really confronting. And the other thing I think is quite confronting with this is pens. So if you're doing the stationery category and you get all the pens from around your house and you put them in one spot, you're probably going to have about 100 pens. And like, how often do you need 100 pens? Almost never, which is interesting. Again, in this episode, Marie left and then let them do it on their own, but they realistically probably had a lot more time hands-on with KonMari consultants. So just something to be kept in mind. A few of you asked me why in this episode that they didn't do the paper. And I think that it just wasn't filmed. Or it probably was filmed, but it was cut. Marie's really adamant that we do our categories in a particular order. So there's no way that she would have let this family not do their paper category. I'm assuming it was just done behind the scenes or just off the camera. Again, in this episode, there was so much trash. Like 100 bags of stuff that went out. I didn't really like the way that they kept advertising that, because I just don't like this idea of joy of throwing away. But I love the way Marie asked the client how she changed her purchasing behaviour since they started decluttering. And that's something that I'm always doing with my clients, checking in with them. Have you bought anything since we started? How are you thinking about shopping in the future? Do you really think you need to buy clothes when you look at your wardrobe? So it was great to hear Marie doing that. And you can tell that the lady just said, you know, I've been finding the emails on my phone that come through. I just delete them even if there's sales. So that was a really great change. And the way the Sun said, just to clarify, this is not about getting rid of stuff. It's about finding joy. And that was reiterated in this episode, which I loved, because it's not about throwing away, it's about finding joy. She talked about the clear containers to store your kimono rather than store it in big plastic bags. 100%. I mean, I would even, if you're storing your winter clothes or if you're storing your doona covers, some of you guys might have seen this on my Instagram stories, I'll store them in big calico bags or even old pillowcases, because that just had a much nicer energy than like a plastic bag. It's like disintegrating yucky stuff and almost feels like it's on its way to go in the trash. So giving a home to an item that is only used for a period of time throughout the year almost gives it a little hibernation space. So we do the same thing when we turn over our wardrobe from summer to winter. You're storing those items for the new season in a container or a calico bag that can be stored, and it goes back in it. So that's really important. I think it was a good thing to remember that this is about joy for the individual. I know a lot of you have said to me, they're like, there's still so much stuff in that house. And you're right, there is a lot of stuff in that house. But for them, it was a huge shift. They went from being able to see the floor on their garage, and some of you probably can, or you still use their garage because there's not as much stuff in there. But this process is individual. It's tailorized to the family. And while it may look like they still had a heap of stuff, they still were able to come to that realization that they were probably able to live with less as they moved forward. So it kind of clarified that this is an individual process and setting that expectation for you as an individual family before you start. And the feeling changed. And I say that all the time to my clients as I come back into the home for next categories. The energy in the house starts to change. It starts to feel lighter. There starts to get fresh air in there. Everyone starts to get a bit happier as you start to move stuff that's been holding them back out of the space, and the energy completely shifts. And that's the best feeling. And I love that Marie spoke to the camera and talked about that shift in energy. So you'll start to notice that as you move through the categories. And lastly, I just want to talk about the way that Marie dresses. You'll notice that she always wears beautiful clothes, and then she'll sometimes put an apron on if she's doing heavy lifting. And we also get taught that. So that was our very first lesson. This was back in 2016, the very first lesson KonMari Consulting Training in English. Our first day was what to wear when you go to someone's house. And it was to dress with respect, because you're going into a space that's very personalized, and you're about bringing in fresh, happy energy and encouraging people to do some changing in there. You don't want to go in there in some daggy clothes, even if you might be on the floor a lot. You want to go in there dressing with respect. So I always do that with my clients, and if I'm going to do a heavy lifting day, I'll probably wear some jeans, or maybe even take in an apron as well to make sure I don't get too messy. But you will note that the way that she dresses, that's just not for camera. We do that as well as consultants. So that's all I had for episode 2. I thought it was pretty straightforward for the empty nesters. I also do the same thing that Marie did and had the sun in there for the first lesson. When I'm working with families and I'm helping children with their parents, I'll always have the children in there for the first chat, just so that the mother and father or the older parents get to know me and trust me, and then we work through it individually. So it's always good to have, so if you're thinking of doing something like this for your parents, you'd always have me having the chat with the 3 or 4 of you to start with, or the 2 of you, or how many there are, and then I will work individually with the parents later on. Cool. Send me through any questions. I'm happy to answer them, and looking forward to the next episode.